Now this will be recorded and available. You can go to appraisergenie.com later today to view this presentation. And as stated, my name is Angelia and I'm the Sales and Support Lead for Appraiser Genie. I've been with Appraiser Genie for a couple years, so I'm very familiar with the program, whether that's ran through Appraise It, Total, ACI. I'm very familiar with the whole process. So I'm here to help you guys today with Appraise It specifically. Now, a couple things to note during the demonstration. I will hold questions until the very end just because we have a 1-hour time frame. But before I let you guys go, anyone who has any questions can feel free to ask me anything once we wrap up towards the end. Okay, now it looks like we still have a couple of people entering the room, so I'm just going to give it one moment so I can begin from the beginning. Alright, so what you guys see, you should be able to see my screen is an Appraise It report that I've already completed as far as what's necessary to have filled out when you use Appraiser Genie. It's pretty bare bones, as you see. The only information I actually have filled out relates to the subject. Warren, if you have ACI, the only difference is the launch and the export process. The entire usage of Appraiser Genie is the exact same, no matter if you use Appraise It, ACI, or Total. So if you want just information on what to kind of expect when you use ACI with Appraiser Genie, you can stay in the room. As the email indicated, I did not make it specific to any one program, although it's demonstrated with Appraise It. It's honestly up to you. We did start beta testing, I believe, today with ACI, so I give it a couple more weeks and we should be compatible with them. Okay, so back to the report. The first thing you'll notice, as stated, the information I have already completed is what you need to have when you use Appraiser Genie with your report. So I have the address, city, state, zip, county. You can skip this entire middle section. A lot of this we don't fill out. We will pull the borrower, legal, assessor parcel, owner of public records. If we can obtain that information, we'll pull it for you and just put it back in the report. But as far as some of the comments here on page 1, you'll still want to complete that yourself, either before you run Genie or after. It's up to you. Now, I jumped all the way down here to this improvement section. You'll see some information filled out which indicates what's necessary as far as stories, unit, detach, design, year built, attic. This is the bare minimum information you need in this improvement area. You don't have to have every single thing filled out, but as far as garage, driveway, that sort of information, you will want to indicate that in the report. Now I'm going to skip down here. And lastly, I have the subject column filled out on the left here. Our adjustments are great, but you'll definitely want to fill out as much of the subject information as you can. The more information you give us, especially accurately related to the subject, the better the analysis, the better the support, a better adjustment is produced. So try to fill this out as much as you can. As you see, I've indicated everything I would want filled out for this subject. And this is just a test subject. Okay, and that's it. As you notice, a lot of this is left empty. So that's all you need to have filled out in the report when you're actually going to use Appraiser Genie with Appraise It. Now the next step to access Appraiser Genie is to click on Services. Underneath Services, you will have Appraiser Genie Cloud displayed. Now if you guys have not already contacted Appraise It, you'll want to contact them first because they're responsible for payment. So any uses you purchase regarding Appraiser Genie Cloud goes to Appraise It. So if you haven't done that, reach out to them. They'll direct you back to us. Now, one thing to note, if you are a new user, there's only one requirement. Your MLS, we create what we call a custom export. And that means to you, you still have to log into your MLS. You create a neighborhood search based on the subject property like this one here. And all you do is define the boundaries, meaning search by subdivision, zip code, high school district, whatever you guys typically do it the same way you do it in your MLS. The only difference is when you do that search, you're going to save that search to a file on your computer. So I'm going to show you an example of a search I've already done in an MLS based on this property here. So I already have this saved, so let me navigate to that. Alright, so what you see here is a search I've completed. All I did was search by zip code. I looked for active solds pendings within the last 1 year because the Genie also calculates your 1004MC. So make sure when you log into your MLS you go back at least 1 year. Now all I did is I didn't return, save this file to my computer. Okay, sorry about that. I'm not sure whose mic that was. Anyway, so I saved that search to my computer. In your MLS, you're going to have a button. It says Export. When you click on Export, you'll have an option. It's going to say Appraiser Genie. You click that, and that's going to put it in the exact format you see it here. Now, we do this for you. You guys don't automatically have this in your MLS. This is something you need to contact us for to set that up for you at no cost. So if you use other products similar to Appraiser Genie, it's very similar to how they do it. We just got to create a custom export. You need to email mls@appraisergenie.com, and our MLS team will give you more information. So this is assuming I've already done that, which I have. So I just saved it to my computer. So I'm going to minimize that, and I'll show you guys later on how that is imported and how analysis is ran based off of that MLS export I just showed you. So once you've already logged into your MLS and you're ready to go, you have your subject here, you have the MLS search, you're going to click on Services and go to Appraiser Genie Cloud. Appraiser Genie is going to take the report information and just transfer that into Appraise It, or backwards, sorry, transfer that into Appraiser Genie. Now you'll notice a window. This pops up automatically. When you're a new user, you're not going to have an email and password because you're a new user. You're going to go down here and click on Registration. When you click on Registration, it's going to have you sign up. You'll just be taken back to this page, and you're going to enter the email and password you just created. As you see, I've used this a million times, so I already have an email and a password. So I've entered that, and I click on Submit. And I'm going to show you guys the entire process just like if you were a new customer or a current customer. Doesn't matter, it's the same way. Okay, so what you see right here is a page you're just automatically taken to once you log into Appraiser Genie. When you're a brand new customer and you've never used our software before, you're going to see a different page. So the page I'm going to take you to is the initial page you will see when you first sign up for Appraiser Genie. This backward and forward arrow, these are your navigation buttons. They just let you look at other tabs inside Genie. So we're going to click this forward arrow all the way over. Just keep going until we see defaults. Now this default tab, this is the tab you're taken to when you first install Appraiser Genie because we want you to look at these defaults we've created for you that help fill out the report grid or help provide your adjustments. So we're going to click on this tab. And we're going to wait for the page to load. Now what you see here is the page you guys will see initially once you install it. The only difference is you're going to have a pop-up box. It's just going to ask you to agree to the terms of service. You'll enter your initials, click OK, and you'll be exactly where I am right here. So this is where I'm going to start as if you've never used it. When you get to this page, the first thing you're going to see here is a drop-down. Make sure you select the right software. If you use Appraise It, you want to select Appraise It. Total is a la mode, ACI is ACI, ClickForms is ClickForms. Now, as stated at the beginning of the demo, we are still pending with ClickForms and ACI, but we don't expect much longer with ACI, maybe a couple more weeks. Now, I have it set to Appraise It because that is the demonstration I'm going to complete it with today. Alright, so there are a bunch of different defaults you can set here, and this applies to your adjustments or in general filling out the report grid for you. You don't have to use every single adjustment here, you'll just use what you want to use. So for example, concessions here, these little blue question marks, they walk you through certain parts of the Genie if you're not sure how to use them. So we're going to click on this question mark. And what Genie is asking is it wants us to enter the maximum percentage of concessions that's customary for your area. So you'll notice I have a 3 here, which indicates a percentage. That 3 tells Appraiser Genie 3% is the maximum customary percentage for my area. So if your MLS reports anything over that 3%, then we will give you an adjustment for concessions. Now this is dependent on the MLS. Not every MLS indicates concessions, so this may or may not apply to you. If you don't care about concessions or it doesn't apply, just put a 0 there, and if any concessions are adjusted or reported, we'll adjust them all. I'm in Texas. I'm in Abilene, Texas, so customary is probably 3% for us. This is an age variance. Whatever you indicate here, the Genie will not adjust for age. So for example, if I'm an appraiser who doesn't typically adjust for maybe the first 5 years age difference subject to comp, I can put a 5 there. Anything over 5 years difference age-wise, we will give you an adjustment for. Or if you're somebody who adjusts for every year difference subject to comp for age, you can put a 0, and we'll just give you an age adjustment for every difference. So that depends on you. If you don't want to make an age adjustment, you can put like a crazy high number, and we just won't give you an age adjustment. So I'm going to put 5, so I just don't want to adjust for the first 5 years. Site size variance is very similar. It's a percentage. Whatever number you place here, Genie will not give you a site adjustment for. So for example, if I don't typically adjust for maybe 30% site size difference subject to comp, I put a 30 here. Anything over 30% we will give you a site adjustment for. If you want to flat out adjust for all site size difference, you can put a 0, or whatever number is customary or typical for what you do. I'm going to put a 30 there. Then later on we're going to see how Genie just skips over that 30% and adjusts for the rest. Okay, below that is subject previous sales years prior and comp previous sales years prior. So we're going to go as far back as 3 years for the subject, up to 1 year for the comp. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe FHA is 3 years or USDA is 3 years. If that's the case, you'll put a 3 there, otherwise leave it as 1. This is minimum square foot to adjust. Any number you put here, the Genie will not adjust for that square footage. Corey, for the minimum square foot to adjust, it's just square feet. It's not a percentage, it's a number. So since I have 100 here, Genie's not going to adjust for the first 100 square foot difference, or 50 if that's what you typically put there. Anything that is a percentage, there will be a percentage sign indicated next to the box. Otherwise, it's just a number. Okay, so the next box here you have adjustment rounding. Now this means that you can tell Genie how precise you want our adjustment rounding to be. So if you prefer that we round up to the next hundreds, 500s, or thousands, you can select that here. Later on when we show you the adjustments and when we place them in the grid, you'll see how it rounds either up to the next 100, 500, or 1,000. I like it to be more precise, so I just leave it as 100. Okay, this next selection, comp export sort order, you have control over how Genie exports the comps back to your grid. If you prefer that we order the comps by close date, contract date, sales price, whatever the option is, it has to be from this drop down. You just click on it and that's how it's going to be exported. I prefer by contract date or close date. Close date will go to most recently to the oldest. Alright, the following boxes are also optional. Anything that indicates a check mark like you see here means you can either provide this information on your own once you're back in the report, or you can leave this information checked and we'll complete this for you. Now, effective age, we do provide effective age for the comps. Just a little bit of background on that. We use the GLA dollar per square foot and the garage dollar per square foot, which is given to us from the cost page, which is basically buildingcost.net. We use that to calculate the replacement costs, also to calculate depreciation, the percentage of depreciation, and the effective age. So if you want to provide your own effective age adjustment in your report once you're there, you can simply deselect it and you can provide this on your own, or let us do it for you, and you'll have a full PDF on how this information was derived. So it's up to you. Same thing with reconciled value. That's also optional. We'll give you a suggested value for sales comparison, income approach, cost approach, but we'll also give you the reconciled value based on, I think it's gross dollars, net dollars, and adjusted, I think. But either way, you'll have a full PDF on this as well. Okay, and these are also optional. Some appraisers may not make a fireplace adjustment, depends on where you are. Same thing for granite, fence, wood. Anything you want to not use, you can just deselect the information. Okay, the following section here is National Association of Home Builders. This information is pulled from their website. You can right-click and go to their website by clicking on Open Link in New Tab. And it's going to take you to the National Association of Home Builders, and it's going to provide the cost of constructing a home. Now this relates to allocation. We get the GLA percentage, and we take this percentage and provide you an allocation adjustment. Many things go into this, but this is a reference. So I just click back. Once again, just leave this here. We'll pull that for you from their website. Now I'm going to mute you guys. If anyone has their mic on, I'm going to turn it off just because I can hear a lot in the background and I don't want anyone else to be affected. So if you're remoted in maybe by you called in, try to move to a less noisier background just because I can hear a lot. And that's just so everyone can hear. Okay, the next section here is MLS acronym. Now earlier I advised you guys the only setup you need to do is we need to create what we call a custom export on your MLS, so when you export that search to your computer it's in our format. Now what you put here is the MLS acronym. So whichever MLS you use, for example ABOR is for Austin Board of Realtors, so that's why it's there. If you use Interest, which is I think Dallas, it's Intrace, and CRAR is another one. So whatever MLS you use, you just put the acronym here, and if you're an appraiser who uses more than one MLS, you just list them individually here. Following down, verification source. This is what we're going to place in the verification source field on the grid, which I will show you. So under verification source, we're going to basically tell, obviously, which verification sources we use, whether that's county assessor, MLS, whatever the case is. There is a default right here. So I left this here because I want in that field to say county assessor. If you want more than one, you can choose from this drop-down box. Let's say you want the list office or realtor last name, realtor telephone, whatever you want, just make sure it's in the drop-down box. If it's not available in the drop-down, then you have to fill that out yourself because there's only so much information we can pull and actually verify we used it. There's up to 3 different boxes. I don't recommend you use more than 2 because you can only enter so much information into each field on the report before you run out of room. Okay, this following box says rights. Everything you see below this is just to help you fill out as much of the report grid as we can. Some of this information is not returned by MLS or public records, so we set a default here, that way we can still complete this in the report grid. So for example, under property rights, if you leave it fee simple, for your comps under leasehold fee simple, it's just always going to say fee simple unless you change it otherwise. That's going to be the same way for all of this information here, unless your MLS does actually provide the location rating or the location factor. If they do, we'll use whatever the MLS says. If they don't, then this is what's going to be standard, and that's what's going to go into the report for all of your comps. Same thing for view rating, view factor, functional utility, energy efficiency, porch and patio. Porch and patio depends on your MLS. If your MLS actually indicates the property has a porch and patio, we can put that in the grid for you. Honestly, I've dealt with over 300 different MLSs nationwide, and very few actually indicate in a field we use if it has a porch or patio. So if it doesn't, what you can do is you can type something here, and this is what will go in the grid for you. So for example, if you want covered porch, CP, dash, and maybe you typically have covered patios, you could put CP. And this is what's going to go in that field in the report for you for every report. Or you can leave it blank like I have it. And if you would just rather enter your own porch and patio information in the grid, then just leave it blank. So it's up to you. That one's just subjective. Okay, the following blanks here, blank row 1, blank row 2, blank row 3. This refers to the 3 blanks down here on your report. Some of this information we can pull for you from your MLS so you don't have to type that in manually. So for example, if you put fireplace in blank row 1, maybe upgrades in 2 or pool in 3, you can set that here. So for example, I have blank row 1 set to fireplace, blank row 2 set to upgrades, blank row 3 set to pool. If your MLS gives us this information, then we'll pull that for the comp and for the subject so you don't have to type that out anymore. And that's subjective on your MLS. This little separator just tells you if you want more than one thing in each row, you can. So if you want fireplace in blank 1, but you also want maybe in-law, and let's say you want outdoor kitchen, all 3 of these are going to go into this top row here. So once again, you can run out of space. This is all subjective on whether we can pull it or not. I don't use any of this, so I'm going to delete that. And the separator just says, do you want a comma, do you want a semicolon, do you want a dash? If you were to choose more than one here, that's just how it's going to separate in the grid. Now, anything that's not in the drop-down boxes, you're going to have to do that on your own. If you go through this options and you find there's something that maybe we could pull for you, but it's not in there, please send us an email. We will add that for you pretty much instantaneously. So let us know if there's anything we could add in these blanks to make your job easier. Okay, this next section is public record verification. Once you're actually choosing the comps you want to use for the report, you can tell Genie what source you want to use for the comp information. So for example, for site, you'll notice I have it set to public. So what I'm telling Genie is to go ahead and use public records to verify the site information for my comps. Now, if you can't rely on public records, maybe they're not super reliable or they're very outdated in your area, you can change it to MLS. We'll just use whatever the MLS export has. Or you can set it to what we call peer. Corey, yes, public records includes realist data. So yes, sir. I will answer questions periodically if you guys send me a chat. So I was asked if we include realist data, which we do. Okay, the last field says peer. What peer means to you is when you run these comparable properties through Appraiser Genie, we will return a running average of what the appraiser is doing for that comp. So for example, if you choose a comp that's already been ran through Appraiser Genie by a previous appraiser, we'll give you an average of what he used for site. Now that's going to depend on how many appraisers use Genie in your area. That honestly varies. So I don't initially recommend you set it to peer, because if peer doesn't have anything, you're going to have to fill it in yourself. So I generally recommend MLS or public. If you're not sure what to use, maybe both MLS and public aren't that great, you can set it to ask me, and then later on we'll just tell you what all sources said and you can choose yourself. So I'm going to leave this on public. And as you see, I left basement square footage on ask me because MLS may not have it, but public does, or vice versa, and it just depends. So left that on ask me. Okay, the last field right here is column order. What this refers to is later on, once again, when you're choosing the properties you'd like to use for the report, you can reorder these columns here based on how you want to see the information displayed. So for example, if you generally look at GLA, maybe that's a big factor on which comps you choose for the report, you can move that up or down, and it's just going to show in whichever order you place it here. Now if this doesn't make sense right now, that's okay. I'll show you where this is at later, but this just literally reorders the fields to see the data how you want to see it. So I'm going to skip this for now and I'll come back to it. Corey asked, was basement square footage for total basement of finished basement square footage? Basement square footage is however it is reported. If your MLS breaks it down by finished, unfinished, then it's going to just go off of finished, I believe. But generally, most MLSs do not break it down. They just indicate the total square foot of a basement, which is what's going to be used right here. Public records may not give you basement square footage at all, and if they don't, you still have room to manually enter that in if you'd like. So as far as I know, this should just go off of the total square foot. Okay, so we're going to scroll back to the top now. Anytime you make any kind of change on this page, your next step is to click on Save. So we're going to click this Save button on the left-hand side. Now once it loads, you're going to notice there are additional tabs that are underneath. These tabs are additional defaults. We're not going to go through them extensively because there are quite a few different things you can do here. Graphs, if you're an appraiser who wants to add maybe some graphs to the report or just to your work file, you can choose from either month, quarter, or year. You go below and choose which type of graph you'd like, and this is one graph. If you want another graph, you go to graph 2. You'll choose either month, quarter, or year, and then select from below which type of graph you'd like. Now, just some background, these graphs are based off of your true comp search. So once you narrow down your search in the Genie and you're taken to your true comp search, these graphs are basically built off the 1004MC. So the whole neighborhood is not incorporated into these graphs, just the true comps, which will make sense at a later point. There's a couple of others. The definitions page, you'll actually have a PDF put in the work file for you, so you don't actually have to do anything with it here. Drew asks, do you also go to City Assessor for public info? Yes, we use the County Assessor information for the allocation side adjustment. So I will show you guys that later, but we do pull County Assessor if that information is able to be retrieved. If you have a County Assessor where you guys still use index cards, then obviously we wouldn't be able to retrieve it for you. Okay, so we're not going to go through this in detail. I'm pointing this out now so you can come back to this at any point. Comments are pretty awesome because we can fill out quite a few different comps in the report for you. You could actually use what we have here. For example, let me go to 1004. These are your 1004MC, and it tells you where it goes. This is the concession comment. It goes directly under the 1004MC. And what you see here is the comment that we're going to put in the report for you. Now, city, I'm sorry, Drew. You asked about city. We just pull County Assessor, Public Records, of course, the MLS export, Postal Service, but we do not pull city. So I'm sorry for the confusion. Okay, anything you see with brackets in here is going to indicate that that is information being pulled for each report. So anything in brackets, the Genie's just pulling that for you. We're going to pull the sales quantity, the concessions predominant, concessions max, etc. Now you're going to notice there's a menu here. It says Quick Pick. If you want to build upon these and make these even more detailed, there's a menu under each comment. For example, if you want to add to the 1004C, you just go down to 1004. And you'll notice there's some drop-down options. You can click on neighborhood sales, marketing time, and I'm going to give you an example. So let's just say we want the current list price. If you click on this box, right where I had my cursor, it placed that information I just clicked on in brackets right here. So I asked it to pull the 1004MC current list price, and it's going to pull that for every report. Obviously, I don't want it right there. It messes the whole comment up, so I'm just going to backspace. And you can actually erase these. You can write them out however you want to. Now the comment's probably going to look weird because I think I deleted stuff, but that's okay. So I'm not going to save this because I don't want that change to apply, but you'll definitely want to come back here and set up the additional information. If you ever want to change the password you initially create with Genie, you just change it here, repeat it, and click Save. Okay, so now we're going to start the report. This was just for your defaults. So make sure you guys take time to actually go through here because you haven't even started the report yet. You only need to do this once, and then it'd be a lot faster. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we want to go ahead and start the report. Once again, you have the forward and backward arrow. We're going to use that to navigate. So we can click on this forward arrow until we get all the way across, and we're going to click on the Input tab. Now this Input tab is what you're going to see after you set up your defaults. From now on, you'll automatically be taken to this page here. So we'll wait for this to load. Now, as stated, if you ever need to go back and change your defaults, just arrow back over and change what you need to. Okay, so to go ahead and get started, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to follow the page top going down. You have your subject address here. This was pulled from your Appraise It report. If you don't have the parcel or legal, we actually pull it for you. So I'm going to go back down here and show you how it was blank. And it was blank. So we'll pull that information and put it back in the report for you. Next thing we're going to do is enter the effective date of the report. Now, of course, this is just a test report, so I'm going to just go with today. Underneath, you're going to select the form you're using. Now, the top form here is 1 to 4 family, which is also single family, 1004 UAD. But you will notice there were quite a few different report forms we fill out for you. So just make sure you're selecting the correct one. Now, we don't need to enter the MLS acronym because I've already done that in my defaults page. So if you use more than one MLS, just make sure you have the right MLS selected here. I'm actually using the one that's already entered, so that's why it's displayed there. Now, NSB is, I think, Smyrna Beach, Florida. So if anyone was wondering which one that one was, I think it's Smyrna Beach, Florida. Okay, below that you have cost approach. This is a yes or no option. What Genie does for you is we're going to provide the cost approach. We'll give you the full support, the full documentation, but it's up to you whether it's required to be filled out on page 3 of the report. If it's not needed by the lender, you can select no, or if they would want that information in there, you can leave it on yes. These are also optional, the REO addendum, quantitative REO addendum, and listing addendum. For those of you who may not be familiar with listing addendum, if it's required that the actives are on their own grid versus being placed with the solds, then you can check that and we'll provide a listing addendum for you. Okay, so the next section here refers to the narrowing comp filters. Now I'm going to go ahead and explain this box to you guys. If you want to read it, that's fine. But basically what we have designed Genie to do is analyze the full neighborhood. So you may remember earlier when I told you that you'll log into your MLS, you create your neighborhood boundaries. That's what I was referring to. You don't need to narrow it in the MLS by age, GLA, site, none of that information, because you're about to do that here. So just remember, all you're doing is creating the boundaries. Like me, I just looked for the zip code. Whatever the boundaries is, that's what you need to search by. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take advantage of the Genie and we're going to narrow out that search I've already done to get me to the true comp search. So as stated, the Genie will automatically narrow the comp search to truly comparable properties out of the neighborhood search based on the comp variance criteria you select to the left. So I'm going to show you how many comps I actually have in this MLS export. So here's my search. Let's see how many I have. Quite a few in here. I think over 300. Okay, so I have 369 properties because I just searched by the zip code within last year for active solds pendings. What I'm going to do is I'm going to want to narrow that file down to produce my only truly comparable properties. So what I can do is I can narrow it by site, stories, age, GLA, etc. Whatever I do here is going to take it from the subject. So for example, for age, I have a 10 here. So I'm telling Genie I want you to narrow the neighborhood search down based on 10 years age. So Genie is going to take the subject's age, and only comps that are 10 years newer or 10 years older will be considered a true comp. The remainder will be left in the neighborhood search. So the whole point of this narrowing is to fine-tune and pick the best properties out of your neighborhood search. Another example would be bedrooms. I have a 1 here. So once again, I'm taking the subject's bedroom count and I'm adding and subtracting whatever number I put here. Karen asked, can we get you to add comp search narrowing filters? I'm not sure what you mean. You can just type back. I'm not sure what you... Oh, like type of roof? Yes, ma'am. If there's anything that's not in this list here that should actually be used or could be used to narrow the search, by all means, you can leave us feedback. There's a button up here. You just type in whatever suggestion or enhancement you recommend. And the appraisers on staff actually get that directly, and if they feel like that's a good suggestion, we'll definitely add it. So by all means, use this feedback button. Okay, so anything indicated with an equal sign, you're just telling Genie you want it to match the subject. So stories, I only want to look at comps that have one story because my subject's one story. So if I put an equal sign there, then all comps have to be one story. It will only return the same number that the subject has. So that's why there's an equal sign. And once again, if I put a number here, I'm taking the subject's bath count, and I'm going to go up or down however many baths the subject has plus 1. So if my subject has 2 baths, I put a 1 there, Genie's going to return as many as 3 baths, as low as 1 bath. It just adds or subtract however many the subject has. Now anything you leave as 0, you're just telling Genie to skip. You guys may not want to narrow by garage space, basement square foot. If that doesn't apply to you, just leave a 0 there and we'll ignore it. Okay, this next section is reconciliation weighting. This is the use map requirement requiring you to score 1 through 10 between the 3 approaches listed, 10 being most similar. What I typically see is most appraisers just put a 10 here, which is indicating to place the full weight on sales comparison approach. Next is highest and best use. Should be pretty straightforward. The top use is current, which is residential. Below is possible, which is residential. And you do have multifamily displayed by default, but if that does not apply, just click the little down arrow, choose the blank space, and it will get rid of it for you. Okay, following the sections, next up is the land comp sales area. Now you're going to notice you have these green boxes that you can actually edit or provide your own information for. This section is really only used if you have raw land value that needs to be reconciled. If that applies, you'll type in the address, sales price, site size, all the information related to the comps here. Otherwise, if that doesn't apply to you, just leave this blank and skip it, because you're still going to get a side adjustment for allocation, extraction, and regression. So this is optional. Once again, you can click on the blue question mark if you need more information. Okay, and lastly, you have square foot method. Once again, these green boxes, you can transfer any information, any data you'd like to enter here. Now, if you're an appraiser who uses Marshall and Swift, this applies to you. If you use Marshall and Swift, you want to take their information they give you, you can by all means transfer that here. Or if you want to completely get rid of Marshall and Swift, you can do that. Leave this blank because we'll use buildingcost.net to fill this out for you. So that's really dependent on you, but I do think they charge, and buildingcost.net is free. So I'm going to skip this because I'm going to rely on buildingcost.net. This quality rating, that's just mapped from your Appraise It report. So I gave my subject a Q4, and that's why you see that here. Okay, so once I reach the bottom of the page, we are done. I'm going to scroll back to the top. Now you're going to see a button on the left-hand side under the address. When you click on Start New Report, what it's looking for is your computer's File Explorer is opened, and it's saying, hey, where's an MLS search? I need you to import that into the Genie now. So once again, I've already, as shown down here, this is the search I want to put in the Genie for all the analysis. I've saved that in a folder, and it's right here. So all you do is you navigate to wherever you save it, whether it's on your desktop, download folder, it doesn't matter. You're just going to double click on it. And now it's going to import that file. It's going to narrow that search down based on the stories, the age, and the GLA, or excuse me, bedroom and bath, based on these parameters. We're also going to geocode the addresses. We're going to give you the longitude, latitude. We'll give you the distance from the subject. And we're going to kick out anything that's not UAD compliant. So what you see once that loads is you're automatically taken to this pop-up box. And all this is the subject information as stated at the top. What we did is we took page 2, This subject column, this is why we wanted you to complete this. We took this information and we just transferred it here. All of this information is related to the subject. This gets sent to buildingcost.net. In return, they send back the total replacement cost. So it's very important, and this is why we repopulate it. We want you to look at this, make sure everything's accurate. If it's not, you can change what you need to. Make sure you assign the correct quality and condition for the subject, because buildingcost.net does use the quality rating, and if it's wrong to begin with, your adjustments will be off. So please make sure you have the right quality rating. And if you're not sure of their scale, we tell you right here. They consider Q4 average, Q3 good, etc. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and say everything is correct. Once I verify that's right, I'm going to click Next at the bottom of this box. What we're going to do is take that search. Remember, we narrowed it down. This pop-up box you guys won't see. Click out of that. But what you will see is this counter at the top. This counter tells you how many actives are on this page, how many sold, how many pending, and the total. So if you remember, I narrowed it down by stories, I narrowed it down by bedroom, bath, and we started with over 300 comps, and we're down to 65. So the 65 you see here, these are the true comps. These are the most similar properties because we took advantage of narrowing it down, and that's what you see on this page. So just some background. Based on the 65 you see here, the 51 sold, that will be used for your regression analysis. Now, regression is not something we endorse, it's just an option we provide you, whether you use it or not. Regression can be very highly inaccurate if you don't have quite a few solds. We honestly recommend at least 100 solds. It should run off of 50, but you'll see some pretty wild results, which I'll show you later. The 65 in total you see on this page is going to be used for your matched pair analysis. So if any matched pairs are produced out of the 65 here, you'll have a matched pair adjustment that you'll see on the next page. And lastly, for extraction and allocation adjustments, the only comps that go into those are the subject and whatever comps you choose for the report. So keep that in mind. There's 4 different methods we give you, and there's different ways that they're derived. If you don't remember that, you can always go back and watch this video later or look at our FAQs, and it's provided in there as well. Okay, so out of this reduced set, out of the 65, you're going to choose the comps you want to use for the report. So earlier in the defaults, I told you guys you can reorder the column headers so you can see the information how you want it. So all of these column headers are across the top of the page. You'll have a horizontal bar that's going to take you all the way over, and as you notice, there's quite a lot of information here. So let's say you were looking for something, maybe site, and it's all the way at the back of the page. You're going to have to scroll all the way over until you see it, and then if you want to look at something else, you're going to have to scroll all the way over until you see that. So I recommend you guys just go to the defaults and put them how you want to see them. I like GLA up front, followed by days on market, subdivision, and that's the order I want them in. So we do actually order this for you. So for example, this address here is going to be ordered starting with closest proximity to the subject, followed by most recently sold, then least adjusted. So after you narrow it, as long as you correctly define your neighborhood boundaries on your MLS and then narrow it in Genie, this should be the best comparable based on closest proximity to the subject, most recently sold, then least adjusted. Now we do calculate distance, so I'll show you that. We'll scroll all the way over. Then as stated, you can move distance to the front in your defaults if you want to just automatically see it. And it's pretty far back here. Okay, so distance, if there's a 0, then either the geocoder can pull it or you have the subject in here. So if that was the subject property, of course it'd say 0. But anything we could geocode for you, it'll give you the distance in miles. So this is 0.1 miles from the subject, this address here. And it goes so forth and so on. So you'll notice it goes closest to farthest. Now you don't have to use our default order. If you would prefer to reorder this information, maybe you want GLA ordered highest to lowest or vice versa, or you want to put the city alphabetically, you can actually click on any of these column headers here and it will reorder it. So for example, let's say we want to click on GLA and maybe put GLA lowest to highest. You can click on this, it's going to load. And as you notice, top going down, it looks like it's going smallest to largest. So by no means do you have to use the distance and everything I just read off to you guys. You can reorder it however you want. You can click it again and it'll go highest to lowest. So let me go back over. Okay, so here we go. So this is the largest GLA for the comps based on what you see here. You can do the same thing with subdivision. If you want to line it up alphabetically, you can click on this and it's going to reorder alphabetically. So obviously if you change this around, it's going to get rid of how we had it ordered. But if you decide, you know what, never mind, I don't want to change their ordering, all you have to do is click on Reset Sort Order. It's going to load. And we'll notice that this is back at the top and now it's back in our order. So use this page however you guys would like to. And what we're going to do from here is we need to select the comps we want to use for the report. So out of the narrowed search is where you choose these properties. You don't want to do that out of all 400 comps because a lot of outliers will be in there, and of course the entire neighborhood is going to be in there. So I'm going to look through this, and I'm actually going to use sales price. So I'm going to click on sales price. And of course actives will be indicated by an A to the left, and solds will be an S, and P will be a P. So I'm going to click it again because it's obviously going lowest to highest. Okay, so here are my properties. This one is $895,000. That is not an outlier at all compared to this property. So if I get to this point and somehow there are comps that should not be in here because you don't want them to affect any analysis or your 1004C, you can get rid of them. So all you do is you click on the box next to the address, and let's say these ones are far too high for my subject, which they are. So I'm just going to click on them until I decide how many I want to get rid of. Okay, and let's just say I want to get rid of these. So I have all these selected. What I'm going to do is click on Delete Selected Comps. I'm going to click on Yes. It's asking me if I'm sure if I want to remove them. I click Yes. Okay, so the page reloads and it completely gets rid of these. Now the counter right here does not update to the next page, but it got rid of these comps, so it doesn't affect any analysis or any support that goes into this. So since I got rid of those, now I can go ahead and choose which comps I want for my report. So let me go back to sales price. And I'm just going to go with a few. I have this, I like 216 Crawford Road, and maybe these two. Now for Appraise It, you can select minimum of 3 solds, but you can go up to 9. If you use total, they allow you to enter 15 comps in the report, and I'm not sure about ACI. I think it's somewhere in between. Okay, so I have 3 solds, which is indicated by the S, and if it is required, maybe you need a couple of actives, just scroll down, and you'll have actives towards the bottom, which are indicated by an A. So I'm just going to go with these 3. Once I've grabbed the comps I do want to use, I'm going to go ahead and click Next. Now while this loads, just a pointer, this little subject button, all it does is it repopulates that box from earlier and shows you your subject information in case you need to refer back to it. That's all this button is for. So we're going to let this load. This is going to take us to our final page. What you see here is called Side by Side. Where you are in the Genie is actually indicated by a blue tab, so if you get lost or you're not sure where you are, just look up and it's telling you you're on the side-by-side. Now this page was actually built to look like page 2 of the report. So you'll notice on the left-hand side you have your subject address. If you scroll down, all the information you already see entered is because I had that filled out on page 2 of the report, or if I didn't and Public Records gave us that information, you'll see it entered in here. So everything you see entered, you can change. If you do need to go ahead and just change some information, maybe you forgot something in your report, whatever the case is, then you can edit any of these boxes. Anything that's affected by an adjustment, we automatically recalculate. So if you mistype the subject's age, I have 37, let's say it's supposed to be 40, type 40, It's going to load. Everything's adjusted for you. Now I'm going to go back to the left here, the right, excuse me. On the right-hand side, when you grab this horizontal bar, you're going to see the first comp I chose, which was 852 Evergreen. You scroll down. All the information filled out came from MLS, public records, or our peer database. Anything pink is not to be corrected. It's just saying for that particular information we use public records. And that's what the pink boxes mean. Then we're going to scroll over. Here's the second comp I chose, 804 East 1st. And lastly, 216 Crawford Road. So these are the three comps I chose for my report. I can change anything here I want to. Very easy to read the page. You just look straight across, and this is GLA. So here's my subject's GLA, and here's this comp's GLA, and this comp's straight across the board. Same thing for this one. So what you'll do is you'll definitely want to look at this information. If anything's blank, maybe your MLS doesn't have heating and cooling like it does here, you could put your own heating and cooling in, and if there's a variance from the subject, you can use that adjustment. Alright, so the last thing you'll want to do is actually choose the adjustments, which is a large majority of what we do. So there's a header, it's going to say adjustment. Below that, you're going to have the different types of adjustments we give you. You do not have to use every single one of these. Depends on you. You have basement, if there is a basement. Below grade rooms, if applicable. Heating, cooling, garage, carport. Covered patio, fireplace, vents, and pool. So how you actually use these adjustments and put them in the grid is you click on them. Very easy. So I'm going to go up. And I'm going to go down to, let's go with GLA. So for example, here's GLA. This adjustment, 112, if you look up, indicates allocation. So $100 or $112 per square foot is based on allocation. Or you can go with $70 per square foot, which is extraction. Or you can go with what actually regression gave you, which is $100 per square foot based on regression. So if I like these adjustments or I want to actually choose one of these, all I do is click on the box. So for example, I'm going to go with, I'll just go with GLA. I'll click on that. It's going to turn blue. And there's a delay. So if that number changes right here, it looks like the public records took a minute to update. So that shouldn't happen to you, but when we pull public records, when I go through GoToMeeting, sometimes it's delayed. So that's why the box changed, but these are what the actual adjustments were. So scratch that, it wouldn't have been $100. It's going to make an $82 adjustment now that it considers public record information. But I will show you how the adjustment is made. So once I click on that, here's my first comps GLA. If I look up, 852 Evergreen. Straight across, you're going to have the adjustment, which is indicated here. Straight across, here's my second comp adjustment, and this is per square foot. Third comp adjustment. So there's my GLA adjustment. When you click on them, we're going to put them in the grid. If you don't click on them, we'll give you the PDFs, all the support, but we don't make the adjustment in the grid. So for example, if I decided I didn't want a heating and cooling adjustment and I didn't click on this, you won't see an adjustment in the grid, but you'll have a full PDF on how this was derived here. So I'm actually going to show you guys an example of that. I'm sure a lot of you are wondering, well, how did they get $82? How did they get $70? I'm going to give you an example, but otherwise, you'll definitely know how to find this information. So for example, we're going to look at this information here, which is GLA. So if I want more information on this $82 allocation adjustment, the tabs are blue at the top, and you can now click on them. So all these different tabs are going to be converted into a PDF later, and it's going to show you how we got this. You can look at this now. We need to arrow over and look at allocation. So we'll click on this. It's going to show me how that value is derived. So we're going to scroll down. We're going to give you the allocation percentage of total value. So these percentages you see here, these percentages are based off the subject area, because remember, we send the subject information to buildingcost.net and they give us back the total replacement cost. So out of 100%, they're telling us for GLA, go ahead and allocate 62%, and put that into this average dollar per square foot. This 133 is average based off the subject and the comps you use, which I'll show you that. If you go down here, it says find average dollar per square foot from comps. So what Genie does is it takes your subject's GLA and all the comps we chose, indicated here, the sales price, the site value, concessions if reported, which they did not, the adjusted sales price, and the dollar per square foot. So if you look down, the very bottom tells you median. So here's the median GLA, here's the median sales price, and over here is your median dollar per square foot. So if we look back up, you're going to see that's the number that was used. So all we do is we take the GLA percentage into the average dollar per square foot, and it tells us $82 per square foot. So that's why you have an $82 allocation adjustment specifically for GLA. If you wanted a full garage space adjustment, it's $7,500. A lot of this information is pulled, like I said, from buildingcosts.net, but it's not just based off of buildingcosts.net. It also considers other information. So we're going to scroll back to the top, and we're going to click on side by side, which is going to take us back to the adjustment grid.
What this is. It's unbelievable.
Okay, so what you're going to see here is back to this grid. These are the adjustment values. So if I want to use site, I will actually show you more about site. So if you get to site and you look at this and you have more questions about land value, how did we get $191,000 based on allocation? There's a tab that says land. We're going to click on land. We're going to scroll down, and the information related to land extraction method will be here. Anything that uses the formula is elementary to read, and I mean that in the most obvious way possible. So if there's any math involved, it tells you what to do. You take B from C from D from E. B from C from D from E gives you F. So anything that does have any math, so to speak, it's very easy to read. So down here is land allocation method. Now we do pull the assessor total value, assessor improvement value, and the assessor land value for the subject, as you see here, and for the comps you choose. So that is the only place we actually use the assessor land values for the land allocation adjustment. You'll notice these boxes you can click on because you can change it. If for some reason you're in an area where we couldn't pull the assessor land value, you may see a 0 here, but all you have to do is retrieve it yourself, put the value in the box, and it's going to give you an allocation adjustment. So it's not set in stone. We understand there may be some sources we can't pull. That's why we allow you to manually do it yourself. So we'll scroll back up. We're going to use this arrow over, and we're going to go back to the side-by-side, and we're going to finish the adjustments. Now once again, as stated, all of these tabs you'll have a copy of, and I'll show you that momentarily. Okay, so if I get down here to this land value and I feel like one of these is an accurate land adjustment or site adjustment, I'm just going to click on one of them. So I'm going to go with this 191. It's going to turn blue. Now you're going to notice for the first comp, here's the site, 9500 to the subject. It didn't make an adjustment. That's why there's a 0 here. In my defaults page, for site size variance, I put 30%. So since 9500 is within 30% of the subject, it does not give me an adjustment. So that's an example on how you can kind of use the adjustments how you want them, whether you want a full site adjustment or just a percentage. Okay, let's see this one. Same thing, within 30%, so there's no adjustment. And 5800, no adjustment. Okay, so we'll go down. If I want a bath adjustment, I can use 1400 for allocation. Matched pairs is always super high or super low because that's how matched pairs is actually ran. So if you want more information about the 84,000, you can click on matched pairs. It'll show you how this was derived, or you can look at the PDF once it's in your work file. So I'm just going to keep this moving and click a few. Here's a carport. Doesn't look like they have carports. They do have a garage, so I'm going to click on 7,500. And if there's a difference, this one was not a difference, so there's no garage adjustment there. But there is here. This has a 2-car garage attached, one car attached here, garage attached, so it applied the difference, 75. 75 since 2 and 1. Alright, so lastly, as indicated, this is why I had fireplace as row 1 and pool as row 3 in my defaults, because fireplace always goes right here. It is static. You cannot move the fireplace adjustment, so you might as well put it in blank row 1 so it lines up perfectly in the grid. Same thing with pool. It's always down here. It never changes. So I'm going to go ahead and make a pool adjustment because this one comp here does have a pool and my subject does not. So I'm going to click 3900. It'll load, and here I have a pool adjustment. Okay, so I'm going to scroll back up, just a few more things to show you. Under each comp, you're going to notice there's a red button indicating realtor, a blue button indicating tax for each comp. You can click on them, and if your MLS gives us any list agent, sell agent, or remark info, that'll be displayed. Same thing with tax. Now, Genie Peer Database, that refers back to, as indicated, if these comps are ran through Appraiser Genie, we'll just give you a reporting average. So if you just see information automatically displayed here, for example, if this comp was ran through Genie and they indicated site, you may see 9,500 right here, or whatever the site value average is that's been used. So that's just kind of for a reference there for you. Alright, so the last thing we're going to do once we've selected the adjustments we'd like, we are actually done. There's a button on the left-hand side, Export to Report. We're going to click this. We're going to let it sit here. In a moment, we'll have a pop-up box from Appraise It, and that's what we're waiting for. So you don't have to do anything on your end, just hang tight. Alright, so this can take a few minutes. It honestly depends on your computer, but you'll have a pop-up that says Appraiser Genie Cloud Import. So we're going to let that load. Once it disappears, we're going to ignore this box just for one moment. We're going to go back to Appraise It and make sure the comps are in the grid. So we'll just click on Appraise It, and we'll notice it here. So anything that did not make an adjustment, remember we clicked on site, there was no adjustment to be made, so just put a 0 there. And then I clicked on a couple of others. So here's your GLA, and here's your garage, and these two were the different ones, so here's your 75. Okay, so of course you have your net adjust down here, your gross adjust. So mine was about 318, give or take. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to scroll down and go to the market conditions. And you'll see this information is entered. The check boxes will be checked, indicating increasing, stable, declining. So that's increasing, that looks declining, etc. This verbiage, this comment down here, refers to where I showed you guys in the defaults. That's just a stock comment. That's something we put in there by default, which is pretty nice, but you can add on to this or rewrite your own. If you're an appraiser who has templates maybe, you could just transfer the comment in the Genie and we'll put whatever you want there. It's up to you. Okay, now I'm going to show you guys a bulk of what we do, and pretty much the best reason to use our product is the support we give you. So for Appraise It, you guys don't actually have a work file like total, so we hand make it for you. So what you're going to do is you're going to go down to your File Explorer on your computer. We're going to go to the C drive, or this PC. You can click on C drive, and you guys all should be familiar with this trade data folder. Every appraiser user has it. Appraise It user. Sorry guys, it's getting late. So we're going to double click on this folder, and you're going to notice you now have a folder labeled Appraiser Genie. Every report you run in Appraiser Genie and Appraise It, you're going to have a folder here. If you double click it, we're going to make a folder based on the report for every single one. It's going to be labeled just whatever Appraise It generates, or you can actually rename it, I think. It's up to you. But you'll notice 2/15/2017, 4:07 p.m. This is the report I just ran that you saw. So we're going to double click it. We're going to go to Output. Any graph sweep provider here, so I'll just go over a few. Okay, so here's one of them. You have the supply and absorption rate, which is indicated by the blue bar, supply absorption rate red. And this is just a basic dollar per square foot graph. There's quite a few different ones, and it's up to you which ones you want. Let me see if I can find a couple more. All right, and this one here is a histogram. Histogram, all it is it's bar graph information that gives you a trend line. Same thing for dollar per square foot. This is all subjective on how varying your information is. Remember, these are based off of the narrowed search that I showed you guys earlier. So it's up to you. They're just there if you want them. Okay, so where we're going to go is the work file. The work file folder is where we're going to find all the PDFs that were converted. So for example, if you're going through here and you want more information maybe on extraction, we can click on extraction and it's going to open the PDF. So this is what you saw in Genie, or what you would have seen in Genie. It's just converted into a PDF. So if you have any questions about any kind of forecast adjustment we gave you, anything that relates to extraction are all in here. Same thing with anything else, so let's go back. And we'll just click on a couple more. I like reconcile, so we'll click on reconcile. And reconcile is going to be based off the weighted by quantity of adjustments, weighted by net dollars, weighted by gross dollars. Those values here are in return averaged out. And what you're going to see down here is sales comparison approach. This is the sales comparison, and then cost approach was 329. So cost approach wasn't very far off at all. And this is just something that you decide when you set the 10 on page 1, where you can choose between cost approach, sales, and income approach. You can assign the weighting yourself. So you can feel free to come back at this at any point. You have the full breakdown for weighted by gross dollars, by net dollars, and by quantity of adjustments. So I'm going to close down, and I'm going to show you guys how to put these in the report if needed. So what I'm going to do is there's a button at the top that says Insert. When you click on Insert, it says PDF Experimental. And you click Browse. And we're just going to go back to that file path. So I'm going to go to this PC, Trade Data, Appraiser Genie. Here's my folder, Output, Work File. And I'm just going to click on Extraction. I'll click Open. Don't change anything here. Click Next. It's already on all. Next. Leave this alone. Finish. And there you go. So you have your extraction PDF in the report if needed. That is up to you, whatever you want to do. Now that's exactly how you run through the program. Setting up the initial defaults is what takes the time. After that, you can run through the program literally in 5 or 10 minutes. So just make sure you set up your defaults so they definitely help you. Don't skip over them. And they're only needed once unless you need to change them again for whatever reason. Now I will leave the floor to you guys. Does anyone have any questions that I can answer? I have one coming in, so give me 1 second. Okay, so it looks like Drew is saying that his county records are very minimal, with the vast majority of the data we need coming from city or township assessor records. Is your product still good for me? We understand public records may not have anything. I mean, I have some appraisers in Texas who public records is virtually useless, so they rely on their MLS export or a peer database. Just remember, if we can't pull it, you guys can literally type the value in 1 second. Everything else is automatically adjusted. So if you go through here and you find you need a site value, maybe a comp doesn't have it in MLS public or anywhere, retrieve the value yourself, enter it, and it's going to affect the adjustments. We can pull what we can pull from. I mean, there's only so many sources we can pull from, but that's why you're always going to be the appraiser, and you'll always still have to manually enter some of this. I mean, that's just the way it is. So it's up to you. It should still work perfectly for you. The appraiser who created the program, he designed it for rural areas. We're in Abilene, Texas. Sometimes we have to go out to cities near us like Trent, just smaller cities, and grab comps from that area because there's not enough here. Works perfectly for him. So the rural area is what it was designed for, and of course it does work very well if you're in California, cookie cutter neighborhoods, you know, the ideal subdivisions, that sort of thing. Corey, Okay, so Corey asked if I can email a previous webinar that I did for Total. It's actually online. If you go to appraisergenie.com, click on the training tab, last week's Total webinar is already on there. Is there a reason that the adjustment to GLA was 130, let me see, 173 price per square footage? I thought it was 82. Okay, so it said 173, but as I was stating earlier, there was a delay in the public records actually updating. So it was 82 after it updated. So the GLA adjustment adjusted for $82 per square foot after it updated. You guys shouldn't have this problem. It's just that I use some of the internet to connect to you, which will delay things, and that's all it was. You're welcome, Corey, and you're welcome as well, Math Car. I think I'm saying that right. If you guys ever have any questions that you want more explanation as far as the PDFs, all of the calculations, all of the support, all of the analysis that is done is public, meaning we use Appraisal Institute calculations and formulas. We literally had the appraisers go back. They went through their own textbooks and, okay, Matt, I got you. And we use those formulas. So anything is public. Do you guys have any questions?
I don't know. I mean, it's... Hey, it's not just going to be me.
Okay, well, if nobody has any questions, I'd like to thank you guys for attending. Just remember, you can go to appraisergenie.com, click on the training tab, and you'll see this recorded webinar. Thank you, guys. Good day.